a fake shelter, a missing caseworker, a chipped tablet hidden under a desk. I went back to the place I ran from and exposed a conspiracy buried deep inside my own family. My mother held my wrists while my father signed the papers that would marry me to a man old enough to be my grandfather. He'd already buried 2 wives before the age of 25. That night, I decided I'd rather disappear into the woods than spend another morning in that house. What happened next tore our family apart in ways no one saw coming. In our home, the moment a girl hit puberty, she stopped being a child and became property. The first time I saw it happen, I was 10. My cousin Neha got her period on a Sunday. By Wednesday, they were measuring her for her engagement dress. The groom? A 44-year-old tax accountant with a missing wife and a smile that made my stomach twist. The family said she died of anemia. The neighbors said she died of childbirth. No one said anything out loud. That night, I made a vow. I would not bleed. Not until I found a way out. I stopped eating. I mean, really stopped. I went from a healthy, energetic 11-year-old to someone who could count every rib in the mirror. I wore baggy clothes to hide the weight loss. I bound my chest with scarves. I figured if I stayed small enough, they might forget I was even there. It bought me time, but not enough. Every Saturday from 5 a.m. to 1 p.m., I cooked breakfast for my uncles and male cousins. No talking, no eye contact, just service. I cleaned up dishes while the food was still warm on their plates. My palms bled from scouring pots with steel wool. My fingers blistered from holding kettles too hot for my age. And at night, my mother rubbed skin-lightening cream into my face. "So you'll be wanted," she'd whisper. They said we lived in traditional dignity, but we weren't in some far-off country clinging to ancient rules. We were in Bakersfield, California. Middle class, 4-bedroom house, gated community. My mother worked in HR. My father ran a trucking business. But inside those walls, it was the 18th century. And then, at 14 years and 1 month, it happened. I bled. I was doing dishes when I noticed the red splotch spreading through my jeans. I froze. The plate slipped out of my hands and shattered on the tile. My mom rushed in, saw the blood, and covered her mouth like I'd handed her a winning lottery ticket. "My baby's a woman now," she sobbed. My engagement was announced that same evening. They picked Amarjeet, 46, divorced twice, 3 kids, 1 my age. He managed a roofing company and liked to joke about how a wife should be built like a minivan, low maintenance and roomy. I barely made it through the introductions. The only reason I didn't throw up on the living room rug was because my cousin Lila kept squeezing my hand from under the coffee table. She was 13, and I noticed the look in her eyes, that haunted, hollow stare. She was next. That night, I slipped her a worn-out notebook. Inside were phone numbers, addresses of shelters in Fresno and Modesto, legal aid info, the hotline number that triggered a mandatory CPS report. I had copied it all down over the years, just in case. "You show this to your English teacher," I whispered. "You use the words forced marriage and coercion. Don't wait. Just do it." She nodded, but her hands shook so badly I didn't know if she'd follow through. I planned to wait it out. My wedding was set for 2 weeks later, and I was going to use that time to gather money, hide clothes, memorize bus routes. I was naive, because CPS showed up the next day. Someone had snitched, and I knew who. They found my notebook under a mattress in the guest room. My uncle pulled it out like it was contraband. My mother screamed that I had contaminated the house. My father threw the book into our fire pit and watched it burn with a calm I'll never forget. "She's infected," he said. "The wedding moves to tomorrow." My mind splintered into 100 directions. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed fully clothed, a roll of cash hidden in my sock, my toothbrush in my hoodie pocket, the soles of my shoes duct-taped for silence. And when I heard the front door creak open at 3:12 a.m., I moved. I slid out the side door just past 3 a.m., wearing 2 layers of socks to muffle my steps and 3 shirts to guard against the cold. I'd rehearsed this 100 times in my head, exactly how to move, where to place my feet so the hallway wouldn't creak, how to close the door so the latch didn't click. The world was silent. My heart wasn't. I cut through our backyard and headed for the side fence, breath steaming in the night air. I'd memorized the route, over the neighbor's cinder block wall, across the back alley behind Miller Elementary, down to the intersection where the 420 bus stopped. From there, a transfer in Fresno would get me to a safe house by 6 a.m. If I made it that far. The porch light flashed on as I reached the gate. For a second, I thought it was motion sensor. But then I heard her voice, sharp and too calm. Going somewhere, Sanaya? It was Aunt Noreen. She stood on the patio in slippers and a knit cardigan, holding a flashlight in one hand and something long and black in the other. My uncle stepped out a second later, dragging a folding chair like he was setting up for a show. "You thought we wouldn't double-check tonight?" she said, like this was some game I'd lost. My heart sank. I tried to retreat, back toward the bushes, when I nearly bumped into my cousin Neha. Her arms were crossed, her face blank. "I didn't mean to," she whispered. "They found the spare key in my drawer." My breath caught. They'd known I'd try to run. I didn't wait for more. I bolted. Branches whipped against my arms as I tore through the yard. I vaulted the fence, ignoring the pain as it scraped my knees. I hit the alley barefoot. I ditched my shoes for speed and ran until the school's rear parking lot came into view. At 4:17 a.m., I reached the stop. It was deserted. Then I saw a woman standing by the bench. Slim, mid-30s, holding a clipboard and a thermos. "You Sanaya?" she asked softly. I nodded, breathless, blood trickling from my shin. She helped me into the back of a nondescript blue van. The inside smelled like old coffee and lemon-scented cleaner. "I'm Chelsea. You're safe now," she said. "We've got a place for you." I exhaled so deeply it felt like I'd coughed up 2 years of fear. She didn't ask questions, just handed me a blanket and kept driving. We reached the safe house at 5:58 a.m., a 2-story brick building disguised as an after-hours tutoring center. Security cameras, keypad doors, no sign, no mailbox. Chelsea led me to a back room with bunk beds and gave me clothes, a prepaid phone, and the number for a social worker named Mel. The 2 other girls in the room barely looked at me. One was around my age, the other couldn't have been older than 9. She still had butterfly clips in her hair. That morning, I slept. For the first time in a year, I slept without flinching at footsteps or waking to whispers. But when I woke up around noon, Chelsea was gone. Mel said she'd been reassigned. That was strange. Chelsea had promised to check in. She'd been calm, careful, precise. The type who followed up. The type who didn't leave without notice. That night, a man showed up in her place. Mid-40s, expensive blazer, too much cologne. Said his name was Armin. Said he was with the same nonprofit. Something about him made my stomach twist. He asked too many questions. Not about my safety. About my notebook. Who had helped me write it. How I'd found the hotline. I just looked it up, I told him. "You typed all that from memory?" he asked, one eyebrow raised. I nodded. He smiled tightly. After he left, the older girl in my room finally spoke. "That man's not with the shelter," she said. "What?" "Chelsea's not the first to vanish." I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I used the prepaid phone to search the nonprofit's name. The website was gone. I checked Chelsea's contact. Disconnected. Panic tightened around my ribs like a rope. I looked over at the window, bulletproof, reinforced, but open a crack. Someone had slid it. Tucked into the window ledge was a business card. My father's. The safe house wasn't safe anymore. The card was plain, cream-colored, unbent. But the name printed in thick, blue serif letters made my skin crawl. Amir Y. Saeed. My father's business card, identical to the ones he used to hand out at mosque or leave at diners, always with a wink. But there was no note, no explanation. Just his name. That alone was a message. "I found you." I backed away from the window, shut it with shaking hands, and stuffed the card into the front pocket of my jeans. Then I sat down on the edge of the bunk bed and tried to steady my breathing. One inhale, one exhale. Again, again. The night air pressed against the glass like it wanted in. Armin was still somewhere in the building. He claimed to be with the nonprofit, but there was no file on him. No record. When I asked Mel, our supposed caseworker, about Chelsea, she deflected. "Transferred to another site," she'd said. No one in this place ever answered a question directly. I curled up in the corner of the room, knees to chest, and tried to sleep. But instead, my brain replayed the first time I lied for my father. I was 8. There'd been a bad storm, and the roof leaked right above the hallway light switch. My mother had tried to catch the drips with a towel, but she forgot to move the laundry basket, and now the carpet was soaked. My father came home angry. Not the yelling kind. He never raised his voice. His anger was colder than that. Scarier. He stood in front of my mom, silent. Then he placed one hand on her shoulder and the other behind her neck. And he squeezed. She dropped to her knees. I stood frozen on the stairs, a sock half folded in my hand. I didn't make a sound. Didn't cry. Didn't run. I just watched. Later, someone must have called the cops, probably a neighbor. An officer came to the door. Tall, white guy, buzz cut. Asked if everything was all right. My mother wore sunglasses inside, her lips barely moving. Of course. The officer looked at me. Everything okay, sweetheart? And I said, with a practiced smile, Mom burned her eye on the iron. Dad was helping her cool it. He looked at her. She nodded. He left. My father never thanked me. He just ruffled my hair later that night, then tossed his business card into my backpack in case of emergencies. That's when I learned. Monsters thrive when little girls learn to lie for them. Now, a decade later, I was done lying. I stuffed the prepaid phone, a spare hoodie, and the $57 I'd hidden inside my pillowcase into a tote bag. I didn't have a new plan. Just one goal. Get out before they came for me again. I knew how to move quietly. By 3 a.m. I'd memorized Armin's keypad code. He'd typed it carelessly the night before. I waited until the building was silent, then slipped out the back door into the alley behind the safe house. I walked 5 blocks under flickering streetlights. The pavement was still wet from the sprinkler systems. I passed one bus stop, then another. I kept going. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Deliberate. Measured. Echoing mine. I ducked into a 24-hour laundromat and crouched by a vending machine. Pretended to fumble for change. That's when I saw the reflection. Armin. Across the street. Hands in his pockets. Watching. I ran. Through the back door of the laundromat. Down an alley. Into the parking structure behind a hospital. My lungs ached. My legs shook. But I didn't stop until I was wedged between 2 SUVs on the 3rd floor, hard hammering. I stayed there until sunrise. At 6:17 a.m., I pulled out the prepaid phone and dialed the emergency number Chelsea had made me memorize. A woman picked up on the second ring. Calm, steady voice. Crisis line. This is Lena. I swallowed hard. Code 19. Echo drop. A pause. Then, are you in danger? Yes, I whispered. Don't move. We're coming. 10 minutes later, a beige minivan rolled into the parking garage. The woman who stepped out wore no name tag. Just a hoodie, cargo pants, and eyes that had clearly seen worse than me. You Sanaya? She asked, scanning the shadows. I stepped forward. She opened the van door. Get in. I didn't hesitate. The ride with Lena was quiet, but not in a bad way. It felt like air after drowning. She didn't talk much, didn't prod or coddle. Just checked the mirror now and then to make sure I was still breathing. Are you okay back there? She asked, her voice calm but alert. I think so, I said, though my hands wouldn't stop trembling. My father's business card still sat like a stone in my pocket. We didn't drive to another shelter. Instead, Lena took me to a generic office building in the business park district, somewhere near Visalia, I think. 3rd floor, no sign on the door, no windows in the hallway. Inside was a modest open space. Mismatched furniture, stacked boxes, locked cabinets. A coffee pot that hadn't been used in hours. But what caught my eye first was the wall. A collage of photos, mostly of girls. Some smiling, some not. Some looked like me. Some were barely older than the girl with butterfly clips at the last shelter. Who are they? I asked. The ones who got out, Lena said. Some are in new schools now. Others aren't here anymore. She didn't say dead. She didn't have to. I sat on the old couch, trying not to shake. Lena handed me a bottle of water and a protein bar. You're safe for now, she said. But we need to talk. Not just about your family, about the shelter you ran from. My stomach twisted. You mean the one with Armin? She nodded. That place wasn't what it claimed to be. I blinked. But they had security. A hotline. Caseworkers. All real things, until recently. She pulled out a tablet and tapped a few times. Here. She showed me a grainy photo from a parking lot camera. Armin, standing near a silver SUV. In the next image, he's shaking hands with a man in a navy shower and prayer cap. My uncle. That was taken 2 nights ago, she said. We intercepted a private security feed. My mouth went dry. The shelter you were placed in was once legitimate. It got acquired last spring, quietly, by a group of donors with ties to your father's logistics company. On paper, it looked like philanthropy. In reality, it gave them access. They hijacked a shelter? I whispered. Not completely. They kept just enough real staff to look authentic. Mixed in girls actually fleeing danger, so nothing looked off. But their targets were specific, runaways from high-control communities. Girls like you. My head spun. And Chelsea? I asked. Lena hesitated. She tried to sound the alarm. Submitted an internal report 2 weeks ago. Flagged changes in staffing. Communications rerouted through proxy servers. Duplicate files. She went missing the day after. She wouldn't just leave, I said. No, she wouldn't. Lena opened a folder. Pages of data. Transaction records. Burner phone logs. Screenshots of internal memos from the foundation running the shelter. We've been building a case, she said. But there's a missing piece, Chelsea's tablet. Her notes, if we can find them, would connect the final dots. I think I know where it is, I said slowly. She always locked it in the front desk drawer. Top right. Black case with a chipped corner. Lena's eyebrows rose. Are you saying? I can go back, I said before I could stop myself. Silence. You sure? She asked. I know the layout. The routines. If Armin thinks I'm scared, he'll let his guard down. If you go in, we may not be able to pull you out right away. I know. I leaned forward, the couch creaking under my weight. They want to use me like a message, to scare other girls. Fine. Let them try. But this time, I'm not the one who's unprepared. Lena didn't smile, but her eyes sharpened. All right, she said. We set the trap tomorrow night. They dressed me in the same hoodie and scuffed sneakers I'd worn when I first arrived. I looked like a girl who'd lost, grimy, disoriented, broken. That's exactly what they needed me to look like. But this time, I wasn't walking in afraid. I was walking in wired. Lena and her team parked 2 blocks away in a surveillance van. A small transmitter was taped below my collarbone, hidden under my shirt. In my jacket pocket, a panic pin that sent out an instant alert if I pressed it twice. This isn't a rescue mission, Lena warned. You're not here to confront anyone. Get the tablet. Get out. I nodded, but deep down I knew. It wasn't going to be that simple. At 9:41 p.m., I walked up the steps of the building that once pretended to save me. The same buzzer. The same lemon-scented air freshener. The same polished tile floor, scrubbed clean of every sin. And at the door, Armin. Well, he said, his voice syrupy. Look who came back to her senses. I lowered my eyes like I'd rehearsed. I was wrong. I shouldn't have left. He stepped aside. Come in. The layout hadn't changed. But now, every detail hummed with hidden meaning. The lack of cameras in the front hallway. The locked wing I'd never been allowed near. The heavy way Armin closed the door behind me. I walked beside him, my fingers curled tight around the panic pin in my pocket. He led me toward the common room, but halfway there, I slowed. The office, I mumbled. Can I get my stuff? He hesitated, then nodded. 5 minutes. He turned down the hallway. I slipped inside the office and went straight to the front desk. Top right drawer, just like I remembered. The black tablet was there, same chipped case. Still warm. I'd barely slid it into my hoodie when a shadow blocked the door. Armin. His face was different this time. Harder. No smile. You think we're idiots? He asked quietly. I froze. He stepped in, shut the door behind him. We let you back in because we thought we could use you again. But you never left. Not really. I stepped back, hand tightening around the pin. Then he lunged. He grabbed my wrist and shoved me against the desk. The tablet slipped to the floor, skidding under the chair. You think you're going to expose anyone? He hissed. You think people like you matter? We've erased girls smarter than you. Girls who didn't scream until it was too late. His hand reached for his phone. I pressed the panic pin. Once. Twice. Then I screamed. A guttural, primal scream that I let rip through the walls like a fire alarm. Not just fear, rage, grief, fury all rolled into one sound. And for the first time, I screamed without caring who heard. The door burst open. 2 officers stormed in. One tackled Armin, the other pulled me out. Lena was behind them, breathless, eyes locked on the tablet still under the desk. We've got it, she said. We've got everything. The data on Chelsea's tablet cracked the entire case open. Dozens of logs. Emails forwarded to off-grid addresses. Voice recordings of private conversations. Some from Armin, some from people I recognized from my father's company meetings when I was a kid. Chelsea had documented every red flag, every missing girl, every call rerouted from inside the fake shelter. She hadn't disappeared. She'd been forced into hiding after warning the wrong person. We found her 2 weeks later in a secured location in Northern California. She testified, along with 3 other former staff members who had remained silent, until I proved it was safe to speak. My father was indicted for conspiracy, fraud, child endangerment, and racketeering. At trial, he claimed I was a troubled girl who didn't understand tradition. But his bank records and Chelsea's files told a different story. The last time I saw him, he was in handcuffs, staring straight ahead like he couldn't see me. And that felt right. I live in Oregon now, under a new name. I volunteer at a legal center for girls at risk. And when I look in the mirror, I don't see a victim. I see the girl who walked back into the fire and dragged the whole house down behind her. But some nights, I still remember the stairs creaking. I still see my mom's blank stare when she didn't stop him. And I still hear the quiet voice inside me, the one that begged me to lie. Only now I talk back. No, not anymore. Would you like this formatted as a script, visual story, or teaser for YouTube/Shorts? Here's a quick recap of the title suggestions again, now finalized.